Good evening. My name is Christopher McDuff, and I'm part of the Umbrella Med IT administrative team. I'm here to present to you video number 1 of 6-series docu-series on Centrifugo. This is a training session. My portion today will cover recruitment and talent acquisition. The videos are presented by myself, my colleagues Keith Beard, Charles Lucas, Adrian Mosqueda, David Stanai, and Andrew Weir. The session objectives for my video today are as follows. By the end of the training, learners will know how to create job requisitions and openings. They will also know how to approve requisitions, reject requisitions. They will also learn how to schedule interviews. Learners will know how to provide feedback for an interview. Objectives continued. They will also know how to select shortlist candidates, reject shortlisted candidates, and add a candidate as a new employee. A user raises requisition requests according to the number of approvers. So what that means is their priority goes up based on how they're approved. Approvers are going to be a management team or a manager, and they have to approve or reject that requisition request. And a requisition request can be rejected at any level. So 1 is basic, 3 is top tier requisition request. After the requisition request has been approved, HR can enter the details or the CV or resume, as we call it in America, of the candidate. Then HR will schedule an interview. The interview takes place offline, and it'd be anywhere from 1 person to a 3-panel interview, depending upon the department and the needs of the interviewees and the management team. The interviewer provides the feedback to the candidate in the system, so notes that all the other managers can read. And then the management has to give their final consent on whether they approve or want to reject this candidate. Once management approves, the candidate can move to the application phase. Umbrella Med has a recruitment process in place for hiring new staff. Centrifugo is a different process in which we will go to further with a step-by-step presentation. First, we're going to cover creating new job openings. As you can see here, this is what the Centrifugo screen looks like. You would go to the Recruitment tab, then you would go to Openings or Positions and add New. And then you would add the type of position you were looking for and the job itself. As you can see here on the screen, this adds the job code, and then you have the business unit, which is the location in the department, then the manager that position would report to, and then you would add the approvers for it, the different managers or HR employees. Then you would add the date, as you can see, you'd add job title, the position, then you would add descriptions and required skills. We all want our employees to have a basic skill set depending upon the position, and then you obviously want to give a very detailed but not too detailed description of the job. Requisition IDs are generated automatically by Centrifugo. You, as the user or HR manager, whatever, inputs the selected details or required details. Then you put the approvers yourself, and you click Save. So you want to save that document, because if you don't save, then you'll have to start all over again because the document doesn't auto-save, unfortunately. Then the next is approve requisitions, which would be a date that it needs to be approved by. So obviously, if you've ever seen a job posting before, it has an open date and a close date. Okay, so now we're going to talk about approving an opening. So you go back in, you'd add the job posting, Um, then once you get a requisition status, whether you want to approve this candidate or not, you click update. As you can see right here down at the bottom, there's a status box, and that's where you would put approved or rejected, or the manager would approve or reject, I apologize. The only two options you can pick are approve or reject, and then you click update. You must click update, otherwise that will not update the status of the application or job posting rather. Rejecting an application or an opening. So again, we'd go to recruitment, we'd go to open positions, we'd click on actions, and then you would click on the open postings or positions, and you click the edit menu. And then obviously you would go down to the requisition status, you would change it to rejected, and then you would click update. Again, clicking update is key, because if you don't, it's just going to sit there, and then that means this person is not going to know, and then other candidates might get skipped over because you still have this waiting application out there. Alright, so entering a candidate's details. This is key. Obviously, we want to enter all candidates that come through the system into the database so that we can evaluate them. This is the talent acquisition part, if you will. You know, we have to be able to see our candidate pool. We can't just assume who's out there. We need to know stats and figures about these potential employees. We need to know what their qualifications are, and so on and so forth. So what you would do is you'd go to the Recruitments tab, you go to Candidates, and then you click the Add button. Fairly simple and straightforward so far. And then on this slide, we have the application, or not application, but candidate form, and it's going to cover things like putting in their resume, putting in the candidate's details, so the generals, the work experience, the qualifications, their education, a summary. You put in things like where this candidate heard about the job. That's also key, because if we're using marketing teams and recruitment sources, we want to know that that's where those jobs are funneling in from. We also want to know if they're funneling from other sources that we're not taking advantage of, so that we can then potentially take advantage of those sources that we weren't previously aware of. Maybe it was word of mouth. Maybe it was a current employee who was trying to help us boost our team, and you know, we might have an incentive program too for employees who refer other potential employees if they become hired. You also, through here, are going to enter the contact's email, their phone number, their skill sets. Obviously, things like their first and last name are given. And then you're going to select the requisition ID from the job posting. You're going to enter the candidate's name. You're going to obviously, as I said before, upload all that information, and then you're going to make sure you save it. So then here, as you can see, you have the requisition ID screen. Like I talked about, the requisition ID belongs to that job. You're going to put a status. You're going to give the candidate's name again, the source, referral website if there was one, email, phone number, and click Save. Be sure to click Save. Now we're going to go into documentation. As you can see here, we have a sample resume. It's mine. But you know, here we have the candidate's education background, their relevant job experience. Scheduling an interview. So once the candidate is approved, that, we've got the approvers have approved that ranked him high enough. We've given him approved status instead, he or she, instead of a reject status. We're going to want to go into HR recruitments again. Then we're going to click the interview tab and we're going to click add. And what that will do is you pick the requisition ID, so again that job code. Then you'll populate all the candidates' information again. Then you will put in the interview name. You'll put in the interview type, so whether it's a phone interview, whether it's a panel interview, whether it's a first round interview, because obviously some jobs and positions are going to have multiple rounds of interviews, especially in this day and age. You want to thoroughly vet that candidate. And then you're going to obviously select the things like time zone. They could potentially not live here if it's a phone interview or a WebEx. There's so many different mediums in which we can do interviews these days that doesn't necessarily require the candidate to physically come in person. That's always not necessarily convenient. And obviously we want to make sure we have the best talent out there, and we don't want to exclude somebody just based on the fact that they don't live near our offices. We will, if they become an employee, we will definitely help them relocate and make sure that they, unless it's a telecommuting type of position. So, and then you're make sure you click save again. I can't stress clicking save enough, because if we don't click save, then all that information is just going to, disappear when we go to a different screen. Providing feedback, and this is internal feedback. Obviously, as respectable employers, we're going to want to provide some feedback physically to the candidate, but that's not necessarily going to include everything that's in the internal feedback. I myself, as a hiring manager in the past, I like to reach out to the candidates even if they don't get hired, and let them know what's going on, and let them know that potentially down the road we could use them or that things, and I try to provide some feedback to them as well. So, for Centrifugo's purposes, providing feedback is you're going to go into recruitment again. All of this is centered around the recruitments tab for talent acquisition. Then on the left hand side, you are going to select interviews, and then you're going to click edit instead of new or add. And then, as you can see, it has the interviewee's information populated there. It has the different information about the interview. And then here we go. So interview rounds. Like I said, this interview could be multiple rounds. It's very common these days to have 3-round interviews. A first kind of get to know you interview. A second where you start to learn their skill sets, and then that third interview is really going to vet that candidate and ask them the tough questions that are going to make or break that candidate, and let us know as the managers and hiring team that this candidate is a good fit, a strong fit, and that's who we want, or unfortunately we'll have to pass on that candidate if they're not. So as you can see here, it has the information, the interviewer, where the interview took place, the type of interview it was, the date, the time zone, the interviewee, and then feedback from the interviewer, and then comments from the interviewer. Comments are like notes, things to follow up on, things that the next round might need to know going in, and then the status. And obviously you want to click update. Again, make sure you're clicking update and save. And then how we go, this is how we can update it. So once feedback is entered, you would go into recruitment, and in the interviews. And if you need to update that feedback, you would click add another interview round if this person is approved. And then you click update and it merges the two together so that the next round has the information from the previous round. Now what we're going to talk about is selecting shortlisted candidates. So here we go again. We're going to go to Recruitment. We're going to go to the shortlist selected candidates, and we're going to click the Edit tab because the shortlist will be chosen from the interview process. It's not something we do. We don't add manually shortlisted candidates. And then you're going to, like I said, click Edit. And then you can see the information about that candidate. And what your biggest thing is you're either going to do is select them or reject them. And in this case, this would be how you would select them. And again, you're going to make sure you want to click Update so that that process takes place and it's permanent. And now we're going to talk about rejecting shortlisted candidates. So it's similar to what we just did. We're going to go into Recruitment again. We're going to click Interview Shortlisted Candidates Selected, and then we're going to click Edit. And this time we're going to click Reject because obviously this person is not a right fit for us. They did make it through, but ultimately there was someone more qualified, someone we felt was a stronger fit. And that's not necessarily anything against the candidate who we rejected. It just, that situation didn't work out. It wasn't a good fit for us, and we need to make sure we're hiring the absolute best fit for us. People we can, fit to that puzzle piece. People that are going to grow with the company. People are going to, help us grow and innovate and, disrupt the market. So you would, in this case, select Rejected and click Update so that the status is updated in the system and we know to move on from that candidate. And then lastly, so if that employee, that shortlisted employee is selected, I'm going to talk a little bit about adding a new candidate, and my colleague Davis Tanai is really going to go into depth about adding that candidate into the system and all the various things you would do for new hire information. So we would start by going to HR, different tab than Recruitment. Again, this will also get covered in more depth in Davis's portion of the docu-series. So you would go into HR, you click Employees, and you click Add. Then that's going to bring up all the different tabs of different information you enter about this employee. I'm going to go into it briefly since I'm more talking about recruitment and talent acquisition. You add the candidate's name, you add the mode of employment, and their employee code, their employee ID, their prefix, their role, their email, the business unit, the department they work for, the reporting manager, their job title, position, salary, when their position is effective, their date of joining, and then you want to click Save. If you do not click Save, it'll be like that employee was never entered in the system, and that's not a good thing because someone's going to be waiting for that hire date, and they're not going to get it without having to call a couple of times because someone's not going to realize until further investigation that someone accidentally did not hit Save. But I hope to you that by mentioning how important hitting Save and Update has been throughout this video, that you all guys are going to be experts and not have to worry about that. Plus, you guys are HR professionals. This may be new software to you, but you guys have done this time in and time out. You guys are pros at this. We're just learning a new software. Hopefully it's similar to something you've already used, and there's not too many hiccups in the transition from what you're used to into Centrifugo. And then it's just more different requisition information about that employee who was shortlisted and then chosen for a job. And now I'm going to present to you a short quiz to see how effective my training was, and hopefully you enjoyed this training video and were able to fully grasp the recruitment and talent acquisition portion of Centrifugo. So let's start this short quiz off. First question is, you can provide feedback for potential recruitment. True or false? That is true. You definitely want to provide feedback for each interview round, so that the next interviewer has an idea of where to take the interview, what that person's skill set was, and how to field the questions. There's more than one option for entering candidate details. Yes, that is also true. You can auto-populate some of that information or manually enter it. You have the option to approve or reject a candidate applying for a position. Well, I think that's a no-brainer. But it is true. In any given job, in any given scenario, you have the option to reject, approve a candidate. Otherwise, there would be no order or methodology to the hiring process. And lastly, where do I add new employees? Is it self-service, service requests, or HR? Drumroll, please. It is HR. And one more final question. Will a candidate be notified of a pending interview? Yes. So once we enter that information, it's going to send an email and let them know about that information. So as you remember from the screen where you create the interview, it asks for their phone number and email. That's going to auto send off a message once you enter all the details about the interview. So the date, the time, the medium, the interviewees, the interviewer, and all that information that is necessary to start the interview process. As you can see, here's the answer key to my test. And this was brought to you by Centrifugo, which is an open source HMRS. Again, this is a docu-series training for HMR. The next video up is going to be background check in HR or onboarding by Davis Tanai. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and were able to take away some details from it. Thank you again, and my name is Christopher McDuff, and I'm part of your IT admin team.